I just got access to a new database. It is one that we use to track our webinars. We track who showed up, who registered, the emails that we sent, everything related to the event. And I want to get this data source into Soda and basically put some data checks on it. But I don't want to handwrite every check. In Soda, checks live inside a contract, which is basically a collection of promises that a table makes for the person who consumes the table. So for example, if an ID column is unique, or that a column can never be empty, or is data fresh, etc. If a promise fails, the check breaks, and it lets the producer of this data that something is going wrong. The nice part is that in Soda, these contracts are files, and AI is great at working with structured files like this one. So here's my plan. I'm gonna use Soda and the new MCP to connect this database to Soda Cloud and let Soda AI to write all the checks for me. Okay, let's start by onboarding this new database into Soda. I'll use Claude Code together with the Soda MCP. The connection details of the data source are in a file, and the password is stored as a secret, so nothing sensitive is gonna show up here or go through the chat. I'll just point to Claude the file, so I'll dictate add a new Postgres data source to Soda from webinar analytics.yaml, then onboard the webinar tables in the public schema. I'm gonna send this to Claude, and we will see it in action how it's gonna call the Soda MCP, locate the file, and start onboarding it. If we go right now to Soda Cloud, I'm gonna just refresh, but we will see that that data source doesn't exist yet. So we have some, but we don't have the webinar analytics one. All right, looks like Claude finished onboarding the data source, and it told us that it ran a discovery scan and it found 45 tables, but only ended up onboarding 6 that are the ones that live inside the public schema, and the rest are Supabase system tables that we didn't want to track. So it's quite nice. It actually tells us the names of the data sets that are onboarded, and it gives us a link. If we click this link, we can actually navigate to the specific dataset, confirm that this dataset exists within Soda Cloud, but it doesn't have a contract, it doesn't have metric monitors available, and that's the second step. Now let's go back to Claude and add the contracts. So I'm gonna dictate for every table in Webinar Analytics, write a data quality contract from the data, publish it, and run the checks. At the end, show me a small summary of what passed and what failed. Let me stop the recording and send that to Claude and see what's happening. In the background, what is gonna happen is that the MCP is gonna look at the tables. The MCP can fire up a contract autopilot, which basically creates a contract based on metadata sample. It could also use a sample of the records if you want, and create the best default data quality for your dataset. Let's give it some time. Looks like Claude finished adding the data contracts for each dataset, and it gave us a nice table with how many rows these contracts checked, how many of them passed, how many failed, and also some description of exactly what's the thing that failed. We can also go to Soda Cloud and see those same results. We can even go to a specific data set. For example, let's go to this one. We see the checks that it has on each of the columns. There's some columns that don't have a check right now. That's something we could improve. And I can even go and see the contract on a visual version or the code version. I can also talk to Soda AI through the chat and ask it, can you explain me this contract? And Soda AI, as capable of Claude, is going to explain me what exactly are the checks that are here, what do they do, and I could also ask it, can you add some checks to columns that don't have them? And we're going to see how Soda AI is considering which changes are the correct ones to do. It told me that it added some checks on 4 columns on webinar ID, webinar title, the LinkedIn URN, and others. I can even analyze, see the changes here, also in the UI. So this is an addition that Soda AI made, and I would say that I like this, so I can publish it and run a new verification based on the new criteria. But if we want to continue working with Claude Code, for example, I could copy this link and tell it to pull. Actually, let me just tell it, hey, can you pull the contract for the dataset that I'm gonna send you, and let me know other ways, what other ways to improve it. And the contract is gonna be this one. And let's see if Claude can further improve this contract. We started with Autopilot, then we improved it with Soda AI within the chat, within the product, with the Soda Cloud, and now we're continuing to improve it within Claude. Everything using the new Soda AI, the MCP, and the tools that you already know, like Claude Code. Okay, Claude finished thinking about other ways to improve the contract and actually came up with quite nice ones. It created a referential integrity check. So basically, webinar ID has to also exist on the webinars table. And it even created, since this is a custom check, it created the SQL for this check to be valid and to run. And I went back to Soda Cloud to check if those changes were already here, and you can see that they are. And the MCP, so Claude through the MCP also verify the contract, and we see that actually it fails at some of those new checks. So great job, Claude, at thinking about it. We've been talking a lot about how the new Soda MCP can help with adding and improving data contracts to your datasets, but it can also help with metric monitors. This will help us spot anomalies that we couldn't have covered through explicit checks. So let's go to Claude and tell it that, hey, please enable metric monitors to the webinar registrants dataset. Looks like Claude finished enabling metric monitoring to our datasets. If we check, we actually see that it enabled the 6 of them. So we have the row count monitor that watches for anomalies in the total row count of the dataset. That one is great for spotting like pipelines that break, and it's hard to spot why. And the others, for example, schema changes in case someone adds or drops a column. And it even set the schedule. So this metric monitor is going to run every day at 2 a.m. UTC. We can check the results here in Soda Cloud and actually go through them. Some of them are already active. And that's it. We went from having a data sort with essentially 0 data quality coverage to having all data sets with great data contracts, metric monitors to spot anomalies, and it only took a few prompts and the new Soda MCP. Thank you.